According to some UFO experts, aliens have visited our Earth, collecting human sperm and egg samples to conduct genetic experiments. Many people have recounted being abducted for such experiments, but behind these thrilling details still lies a mystery. When UFO science first emerged, there was mention of blue-skinned aliens from distant space coming to study Earth for scientific and military purposes. In the late 20th century, ufologists began discussing extraterrestrial intentions to acquire human genetic material for crossbreeding research. In the 1950s, ufologists recorded many cases of aliens coming to Earth with the purpose of taking genetic samples. Howard Menker, an American, was one of the few who had the opportunity to meet a beautiful alien woman. According to him, this woman said her name was Mala, born 500 years earlier on the planet Leo. Menker developed deep love for this alien woman. He divorced his wife and married Mala. Elizabeth Larray was one of the first women said to have experienced romance with an extraterrestrial man. She was born in 1910 in South Africa. She had been a pilot in the Royal Air Force. She also worked for South African Air Force intelligence agencies, specializing in decoding secretly transmitted German information. After the war, in 1950, she happened to read a book about UFOs. And then buried memories from childhood suddenly resurfaced. When she was just a child, she and her sister saw a shining silver disc flying over a field. After a series of UFO sightings were reported in 1954, Larray often went to a remote hill outside Trondheim-Nesbord to investigate the matter. And she encountered a real spacecraft. The flying object landed, emitting strange sounds. Larray saw someone inside through the flying saucer's window. Later, Larray said she began telepathic communication with an entity calling itself Archon from the planet Meton in the Alpha Centauri system. And 2 years later, she met Larray again. This time, they introduced everything to get to know each other. The Earth woman was even invited by alien beings from another planet to visit their giant mothership, said to be up to 8 kilometers long. According to descriptions, this spaceship resembled a city with all internal landscapes. No different. Larray met the residents there, who looked like Earthlings but were taller, more beautiful, very attentive, considerate, and gentle. Communicating with them telepathically, she learned they originated from Salkim and settled on Meton long ago when Salkim's environment became uninhabitable. After returning to Earth, Larray continued to meet Archon many times. She felt attracted to this alien. During one meeting, Archon gave Larray a silver ring to enhance their telepathic connection. Archon revealed that Larray was actually a reincarnated Salkim person, his lover when the planet was still alive. Their relationship continued and Larray became pregnant with Archon's child. She decided to leave with her lover, which was in 1958. Archon took her to the mothership once more and then to the planet Meton. There, over 4 months, she gave birth to a son named Eileen. This planet was described by Larray in meticulous detail, including its government, education system, lifestyle, fauna. According to her, Meton was an ideal society. No war, no crime, no poverty, no monetary system, no high-rises or factories. Hence no pollution. Larray wanted to stay there forever. But Meton's conditions proved too extreme for her physical health. She explained that the magnetic field vibrations there were quite different from Earth's, causing her heart rhythm to weaken. After a tearful farewell with Archon, Larray left her son behind and returned to Earth. Since then, she occasionally met Archon and Eileen, and they frequently communicated telepathically. Of course, there was no shortage of skepticism about the story of a woman loving and having a child with an alien. because having a child with an extraterrestrial and living on another planet was known only to her. There was no evidence of her pregnancy, and no one recorded her unusually long absence during the supposed 4-month interplanetary adventure. Besides seducing and loving humans, aliens also performed even bolder actions. On October 16, 1957, a 23-year-old Brazilian farmer named Antonio Vilas Bosch was working in the field when his tractor engine suddenly stopped working. A few minutes later, this farmer saw a flying saucer right above his head. The flying object landed on the ground, and Antonio saw 3 human-like beings step out. They approached the young man, terrifying him. Not knowing what these beings from the sky wanted, he prepared himself to deal with the situation. However, these beings were more numerous and had psychic strength. They dragged the terrified young man into their spacecraft. Then, they stripped off all his clothes, tied him tightly to a metal table, and began conducting a thorough medical examination. They seemed satisfied to have found a healthy subject. One of them injected the captive with something, and then they all left. A moment later, the door opened, and he saw a very beautiful, completely naked girl enter. She came close and turned the Earthman over. Then, they had sex without saying a word. Later, in an interview with the press, Antonio recounted that when she left, she twirled her body, pointed to her stomach, laughed loudly, and pointed up to the sky. Then, the aliens brought Antonio down, and they started the spacecraft and flew. After this fascinating encounter, Antonio began to show a thirst for learning and understanding. A year later, he passed the entrance exam to the local university's law school, graduated with honors, and became a talented lawyer. Many years ago, Harvard Medical School asked Professor John Mott to research the phenomenon of relationships between aliens and Earthlings. This experienced psychologist was initially skeptical about the issue, but after research, he published many strange conclusions. He analyzed many stories about alleged alien abductions and believed they conducted genetic experiments on humans. They studied humans in special laboratories, taking sperm samples from men and egg samples from women. Sometimes they implanted a fertilized egg into the uterus and the woman carried it as a surrogate. Afterwards, they removed the fetus and continued to sustain its life in a special environment. Professor John Mott believed that the aliens also allowed the mothers to see their hybrid children. He recounted that one woman was abducted twice in 2 consecutive years. The first time they took her to the laboratory and made her pregnant. Then she gave birth, after which they returned. The second time, the aliens showed her son playing in a special room. The child did not resemble normal Earth children, but the woman could not care for it. However, the aliens welcomed the mother's potential and allowed her to stay with this child for several months. Dr. Roger Lee of the University of California Medical School, who once asserted there were no extraterrestrials, later had to change this. While performing surgery on patients, he removed 6 extremely strange objects. Many of these patients said they had been abducted by extraterrestrials. All of these people recounted similarly that they were taken to operating rooms and subjected to medical examinations in strange ways. The extraterrestrials performed actions as if dissecting their bodies, but they felt no pain, apparently afterwards. According to Roger Lee's speculation, foreign objects were implanted into their research began with an unexpected discovery when he viewed X-rays of a woman. Because she always claimed to have been abducted by strange beings. Under the skin of her big toe, a very unusual metal foreign object was clearly visible. At first, he thought of careless doctors leaving surgical tools inside patients' bodies. But externally, there was no sign that the patient's toe had ever been operated on. Extremely curious about this discovery, Roger Lee proposed surgery for the patient. The foreign object was removed from the patient, but he still didn't understand what it was. Externally, it resembled a needle about 1 centimeter long, covered by a silver-gray protective layer resembling biological. It was very soft, but surgical tools couldn't cut it. He sent it to a laboratory for analysis. 2 days later, the results were truly astonishing. The outer biological protective membrane was firmly attached to the internal metal type. This metal itself consisted of 20 assembled components. Each component was coated with a special anesthetic compound that numbed the hand, while also capable of contacting and directly affecting nerve endings. To understand how the foreign object was implanted into the patient, since this person showed no signs of having undergone surgery. It seemed as if the foreign object formed by itself inside. Roger Lee immediately established a research group on foreign objects. They decided temporarily not to investigate the structure but to focus on its function. Some suggested re-implanting the foreign object and monitoring the patient's behavior. Others, including Lee, advocated removing the foreign object from the body and studying it independently from the patient. This latter opinion was more convincing, because the 6 patients with the aforementioned all felt relieved, no longer suffering from headaches after the objects were removed, as if they had just escaped the control of a supernatural force. Stories about aliens coming to Earth and contacting humans still cause much controversy to this day. However, astrophysicists hardly anyone believes. They argue whether it's worth for someone to travel a minimum distance of several light years just to investigate a few unclear things, or to abduct a few Earthlings. But for those who believe in intelligence in the universe, they have different arguments. The Close Encounter Conference held in Australia gathered people who had experienced encounters with aliens to share their stories. A survey showed nearly 3,000 people claimed to have been abducted by aliens. This survey was a collaboration with the Extraterrestrial Contact Research Organization, founded by Edgar Mitchell, an astronaut who walked on the moon. Attorney and expert on alien contact research, Mary Roswell, stated, "Many people think being abducted by aliens is bad. But in reality 85% of those who had contact reported positive experiences." Ms. Roswell was also a keynote speaker at the Close Encounter Conference. She recounted cases of alien contact reported by survey participants. Among them was a doctor who previously considered alien stories ridiculous. She had an experience that changed her perception. After that event, her worldview changed and her healing methods became different. She healed using energy. Roswell said many people opposed the theory of aliens before meeting extraterrestrial beings. One of them was attorney Ray Hernandez from Miami. Previously, Ray completely opposed alien matters, until his wife and daughter saw a UFO flying past their house one night. A strange energy came down and healed their dying dog. From then on, Ray decided to dedicate the rest of his life to testifying about the truth of aliens. He no longer cared what others thought of him, because it was his personal experience. What he discovered, like me, is that there are millions of people who have encountered aliens or UFOs but don't dare speak up, for fear of being considered crazy. Ms. Roswell believes that alien encounters are part of their program to expand human consciousness. Initially, people often feel fear after encountering aliens because they don't know what will happen, but later they develop new awareness and abilities. They realize they have the ability to heal using energy. They reduce belief in materialism and want to live more ethically, able to connect with all things. In fact, UFOs are an issue of great concern to the United Nations. According to documents from 1978 revealed by WikiLeaks in May 2016, WikiLeaks published over 500,000 U.S. State Department documents from 1978 to present, showing detailed interest of countries worldwide in the UFO issue, including efforts by Grenada's Prime Minister to establish a UN committee to study UFOs. A July 14, 1978 newspaper reported that producer Lise Bitro organized a UFO seminar at the UN, with participation from military, weapons experts, top scientists, and then UN Secretary-General Kurt Waldheim. In April 2015, Former Canadian Defence Minister Paul Hellyer shocked public opinion by stating that governments are deliberately hiding the truth about alien life forms coexisting with humans. Paul Hellyer, 91 years old, served as Canadian Defence Minister from 1963 to 1967. In a speech at the University of Calgary on April 18, 2015, he called on world leaders to acknowledge that data about aliens and unidentified flying objects has been concealed, and at least 4 types of aliens have visited Earth. Hellyer said most media don't have access to the real documents. In fact, the former Canadian Defence Minister began speaking about alien existence since 2005. According to Hellyer, aliens have been on Earth for thousands of years and they're dissatisfied with human lifestyle. He said we spend too much time on war, spend too much money on military while not having enough food to feed the poor, as well as care for the homeless and sick. In 2014, former Minister Hellyer appeared in a live interview on Russia Today's Soviko program. He stated that aliens are accompanying humanity today. However, they refuse to share advanced technology until humans stop environmental pollution and war. Other famous figures have also affirmed that aliens truly exist and UFOs are of extraterrestrial origin, such as former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, former US President Ronald Reagan, and famous physics professor